Hi, I'm Angelo Rodriguez, your host here at New Frontier News. I'm here with Dan Kovel from Kovel Law. How you doing today, Dan?
Hey, I'm doing great, Angelo. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming. You are actually the first guest on New Frontier News. I don't know if that means anything, but
I'm
first
honored.
guest.
I'm honored. I hope I can deliver an exciting first episode.
Well, thank you, Dan, for coming. I know you're very busy. Could you tell us quickly just a brief background of yourself and how you got into employment law?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background actually is in employment law. I've practiced in other areas, but I've always been drawn back to the workplace. I went to law school in the city of New York. I've only worked in the city of New York. I've worked for some very large institutions like the Public Defender's Office, known as Legal Aid Society, in their civil litigation department. I was doing first employment law, and then I worked in other areas. I've worked at a couple of boutique law firms here in the city. Most recently at a firm that does what I do now, which is represent employees and sometimes freelancers in litigation and other sort of aspects of employment transactional work. So, offer letter reviews, severance agreement reviews, things like that. I've always been interested in helping people and intersecting with the courts. So that's really been my two sort of beacons of light when I was trying to figure out what to do with a law degree. How could I get into the courts and how can I help people? So, I think that really is kind of the basis of what employment law is really all about. You're helping people with some of the most trying and pressing things that are going on in their daily life that can really put a damper on their self-esteem, on their emotional well-being, on their family life, and it can all really stem from just something that's happening to them at work. And I think that has been a big motivating factor in helping, not just for employment law, but really from the employee freelancer end of employment law for me.
So, what would be an example? Like you're working with, you said different people, entrepreneurs, freelancers, as well as businesses. If a small business needed you, why would they call you? What would be a scenario in which they would call you?
Right. So, if you think about the workplace, there's the people that are contracting for services and there are people that are offering their services, right? And that's at its core, right? So, a lot of employment lawyers sort of divide along that line. Am I going to represent the entities that are asking other people for their services, or am I going to represent the people that are offering their services to others, right? In my case, when I'm representing employees, oftentimes, or freelancers, or solo entrepreneurs, oftentimes the issues that they come to me with are sort of in three buckets, right? One of them is when when they've done work and they had an agreement to get paid for the work, and for whatever reason, the company that they were working for has decided not to pay them. There's a bunch of different statutes that I don't really want to like do a deep dive in at this point, but suffice it to say, there are a bunch of different statutes out there for city workers, especially, that protect you when you're not paid for work that you've done. And then another sort of bucket, a second bucket, is when somebody has come to me after they've been exposed to, been the recipient of discrimination in their workplace. So, discrimination takes many different forms. But again, there's statutory protections out there that enumerate which types of discrimination are unlawful. It's not really just about like, my employer was a bully, my supervisor was a bully. It has to be narrowly tailored to, there's something about me that of who I am personally that is implicit in me. It's who I've been since I was born, that somebody is targeting in my workplace, right? So they have a story that sometimes takes similar narratives, and sometimes it's a wholly new, completely novel narrative for me anyway, about something that's happened to them related to something that is just who they are. The third, in some ways, sort of smaller bucket is when somebody has engaged in another form of protected activity. I use that word, protected activity. You might be saying, like, what does that mean, right? So protected activity, in the way I'm using it, means that a person in a workplace has complained about something that's happened to them that's protected under a law. So if you've been a victim of discrimination or a wage issue and you complain about it, there are laws that protect you in your complaining. But another one that doesn't even really fit into the first two buckets is, well, what happens if you're, let's say, a healthcare worker and you've complained about something that really would impact the health and safety of the public, right? Are you protected? There are laws out there that say, yes, you are. If you work in certain industries that interface with the federal government or state government money, and you're complaining about, the way the employer is acting is causing a fraud on that government money, are you protected? The statutes have said, yes, you are protected in certain ways. So, I'd say that oftentimes where I'm getting involved for employees, something along one of those three lines has happened. Of course, there are other things that I do that are not related to those three things, but I'd say that 80 to 90% of the time when there's when I'm getting involved for somebody who has one of these issues, it's because one of these three things in some way has happened.
Got it. So it sounds like it's generally employees who contact you. Is there ever a case when an employer wants to protect himself from these potential frivolous lawsuits should they come their way? Do employers use you?
Yeah, they do. They do. We're lucky enough at BNI to have other, lawyers who sometimes handle those cases as well. So, I do handle those types of cases, absolutely, especially in sort of the micro way. But, if you were to come to me as a result of seeing this video at BNI, depending on sort of what the issue is, you'd probably be talking to potentially me or a different lawyer. But suffice it to say, yes, absolutely. In workplaces, there are many, many, many good employers out there who are looking for, smart, cost-effective counsel to help them navigate these really complex laws that, when you get into the business of being a business doing something completely up, like something not related to, payroll practices or human resources type things, you're not really thinking about, am I following the letter of the law on all of these sort of ancillary issues? Of course, you're trying to be a good person and you're trying not to target people for discriminatory reasons, but there are other ways that employers can get tripped up, and lawyers like me are out there to help guide those employers. And I'd say that one specific way is in New York City, there's a very specific law related to sexual harassment. It's called the New York City Stop Sexual Harassment Act. And I have experience with helping employers comply with that law because it requires specific training of the workplace and the people in it to show, actively that not only is this going to be an issue if something does arise, but it's in fact an issue because people work in that workplace. So people need to know that those laws exist, that those protections exist right out of the gate.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. When I got into business, I didn't know anything about labor law or HR law until years later when I actually was trying to hire someone. At what point should someone, like when you open a business, you file that LLC, they never tell you, hey, you should go see an employment attorney to go get counsel on whatever else you need. At what point should someone who's starting a business come see you?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. As a small business owner myself, I work for myself, very quickly you realize that it takes more than a great idea to be a successful business owner, right? Like you can have all of the corporate entity in place and the insurance you might need in place. You might have picked out commercial real estate if you're going to be doing sort of a brick and mortar place, or you've figured out whether you're going to work from home or from a co-working space or whatever. But at some point you're going to realize, like, I need to monetize this idea, right? And so if you're going to go out there and you're going to offer, especially for services folks, right? If you're going to go out there and you're going to offer your service to another company for money, right? Right out of the gate, you're talking about, am I securing my time in a way that's going to net me profit? And to me, that's right where I get involved, right? Like, if you're an independent contractor and you are engaged by another company and they have to offer you a contract, a written one in New York, if you're doing work for more than $800. So that's by statute, it's called the Freelancers and Free Act. They have to offer you a written contract. Once they offer you that contract, you should have a lawyer look at it, because there's going to be a lot of nuance in that contract that could implicate your ability to get paid at the end of the day. So, I do that work on a very cost-effective basis. I know that right out of the gate, you're not necessarily monetized the way that you hope you will be a year from now, 2 years from now. So, I work with companies and individuals from the gate to the expansion to, jump off, right? Like, and if you grow really, really big and it's not really in my wheelhouse, then I know the right lawyers who are going to take you through that next phase. And I work with them, and I feel very confident that, between me and them, sky's the limit for you. So yeah, I think it's pretty early on, right? When you're starting to get good traction with people, you should start contacting a lawyer, and preferably me, to review some of those deals. And certainly if you've been getting stiffed on money and you're trying to figure out how to navigate that process, well, then absolutely, the moment a company starts putting the brakes on your ability to get paid, that's definitely a time when a lawyer can be a very good asset to you.
Got it. So I want to get back to that, but real quick, you mentioned an employer giving contracts to his employees or independent contractors. What would you say if, like, you're someone starting out business, they go online and find some boilerplate contracts for independent contractors and employees, and they just do a little copy and paste, asking for a friend? Does that hold up? How good are those online boilerplate documents that people use?
It's hard for me to, say across the board, those are bad or those are good, and it really depends on the service. Lawyers really hate to sort of qualify, this is always going to be bad or this is always going to be good, right? But I will say that if you have a skilled lawyer speak to you about what it is that you're trying to accomplish in any deal, and then they think with you through what are the different types of protections I would want in a deal that wouldn't scare off the other business partner, but would give you the grounding upon which you can then monetize your service, you're going to be better off, right? Because that's going to be something that even if it was based on, a lawyer's, best practices models, which we don't tend to like rewrite the wheel every single time, right? Like some of these parts of these things are pretty standard, but when it gets to like sort of the nuance, it's really nice to have a lawyer say like, okay, well, we've walked through exactly what you want to do here. This particular agreement with this particular language is going to be the one that I think is going to give you the best chance to avoid all the other nonsense that can happen on the other side of the deal. So I hope that answers the question, but it's hard to say. There are some agreements out there that might be able to get the process done, also, and, could be, something that at least out of the gate you can use. I'm very hesitant to tell, a jumpstart company, like, there's nothing out there that they could do to be better than just like doing a handshake, because that's definitely not going to be the case. You need to have something in writing. And if there's models out there that you think accomplish what you need to accomplish, give it a shot. And if it doesn't work, we'll be there on the other side. But, I think most lawyers would say, like, get me there as early as possible. I can make this better for you.
And you mentioned that too. How strong are verbal contracts and agreements? To my understanding, they're somewhat upheld in New York courts, but are they still? What's your take on verbal contracts?
Right. So I was saying a little bit about this before, but in the five boroughs, we are extremely fortunate to have additional protections for the group of workers that I call independent contractors or freelancers. There is a city law called the Freelance Citizen Free Act, which mandates that contracts be in writing. So when they're not in writing, it's not the independent contractor or freelancer who is at fault. It is a presumption that the company or entity that contracted for the service and didn't provide written contract, that there's something wrong on their end. So, you know, absent some sort of like inducement into that way, and I don't even know if that would really hold up, but it really is a strong presumption that companies that are out there looking for independent contractor services should know that this law exists in New York City and should be following it. And when they don't, there is sort of statutory remedies for a person who on the other side of that is told like, oh, well, we didn't talk about that, oh, we didn't agree to that, or oh, I said 500, I meant 250, right? Like, or 5,000, I meant 2,500, right? Because there's an $800 starting point. When they start like renegotiating mid work stream, which happens a lot, that in New York City, that's just not going to fly anymore. And I and other lawyers like me, we're very interested in taking those types of issues, on to enforce that law.
Got it. So would maybe not so much of a verbal agreement, but if someone came with a text and an email that said, "Look, he said he would pay me 500 in an email," is that any strong at all? Is that just as good as a verbal?
Right. So if you're an independent contractor and that's all that was given to you, even if it's not enough, right? And it's more than $800. So I want to be clear about that. Or the cumulative amount of it is going to be more than $800. Then I would say that, you're protected in the sense that, you did the work. If you could show that you did work on this deal and they didn't provide sort of the full terms that you would have expected to see, and that the Freelance Citizen Free Act really requires, then it's not going to be your problem. It's going to be the company's problem. Said another way, it is to both parties' benefit, but certainly the contracting parties' benefit to know that this law exists, to follow this law, and to get exactly what they want in the deal up front, which is really what I think the law is trying to accomplish, which is to say that the parties need to have a frank conversation right up front before any work is done about what it is that they expect from this arrangement, this relationship, and then they follow it.
That makes sense. So you also mentioned sort of payment disputes with contractors or employers. What if would you handle a payment dispute from someone just trying to get payment from a client?
Definitely. Definitely. So depending on what the term client is and who my client would be.
Client, yeah.
Yeah. So, again, I think in New York City, getting paid from a client, if you are an individual solo entrepreneur, if you are a freelancer, that then falls squarely within the Freelance Citizen Free Act, because that person's client is the other side of those deals, right? That I'm talking about. If you're trying to get paid, like on behalf of your company, right? Like if let's say you're a commissioned salesperson, right? Well, then really, I would say that it's incumbent upon the company itself to go after a paying customer of that company, right? And that becomes more of what I think lawyers would call commercial litigation, right? Mm-hmm. There's a company and another company that are having a dispute over a commercial contract for services rendered, and it's not that I don't do that work. It's just that it's sort of defined differently, and the rights and responsibilities of the parties is somewhat different. It doesn't fall into those, employer-employee relationships or freelancer, independent contractor and company relationships. It's a little different. So, there is some nuance to that as well.
Got it. So, Dan, we got to talk more about that, but I know you're short on time. I wanted to just ask you real quick because I noticed and I love that you went out on your own. You started Kovel Law. As an entrepreneur, I am just so proud of you, man. But what made that decision? Why did you go on your own and start Kovel Law? I mean, there's so many great law firms. I know you had a ton of offers. Why did you go on your own?
So, I've thought about going out on my own and being my own boss, from the jump. And there's a lot of really obvious reasons why somebody would want to work for themselves. But in my role specifically, when I set up at the top of this interview was that I got into law to help people, right? So as in my own boss, I get to choose which clients I help. I don't have to, report in anyone, get anybody's authorization. It's me. It's my company. It's my firm. It's my know-how. And if I'm able to help the person and I think that I can help the person, I get to help the person, which is just, it adds another layer of how rewarding my practice is on a day-to-day basis. So, that's definitely a huge part of it. As a businessman like you, the other parts of it are like I said, are kind of obvious, right? Like when you work for someone else, even if you have a very sweet deal where, you can get some income stability plus a little bit of the take, which is something that lawyers in my position oftentimes look at, the take of whatever you're getting is certainly not going to be the full take, right? Like you're not going to get the full benefit of your work. Whereas if you work for yourself and you take good cases and you do good work and you get good results, it's your reward, right? So, I can't really say that in a way that doesn't, make me sound like, I'm fully money motivated any more politely, but look, it's definitely a part of it, right? Like, that's definitely something that I think is just part of who I am, right? Like I like the performance aspect of it. I like being able to say, like, these are my numbers year over year. This is the work that I've been able to put into it. This is where I'm able to say that, I'm growing. I'm doing this for myself, and the fruit is growing on the tree.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. Every nickel made is a nickel earned.
Exactly.
You earned every. No one could say you got something for free. You literally earned every penny you made, which is definitely rewarding. I believe too. I agree with that sentiment. But what challenges have you found being independent? I know you came from a larger firm. What are the challenges or nuances or just new things that are coming up in your business?
Look, I think you and I can both agree that if New York isn't the greatest city in America, it isn't the greatest city in the world. It's certainly the greatest city in America, right? So, but with that amazing diversity and density and tremendous opportunity that comes with being in New York, there's also tremendous competition, right? So, the lawyers that do everything in New York are the best of the best. And anywhere that there was an edge in the practice, somebody has gotten there first or is on their way there, and you're right there with them trying to get, in that market, right? So I think that the biggest challenge that any, small or independent firm goes through is, okay, so how do I stand out from, other practices that may have been there for 30 to 50 years, doing similar work to what you do, and get a client to say, I want to be with Dan. I don't want to be with, these other firms that, perhaps are more well known in the marketplace. So, and I think that I do offer something that those other firms don't offer. Depending on which firm, obviously, I'm not, characterizing them all together. And I have a deep respect for the firms that are doing what I do. And I consider them colleagues, not really competition. But, when you come to me or a firm like me, you're going to get me every time. You're going to get my attention. You're going to get my service. I'm available to my clients, and even if I do grow, it's in my DNA. It's who I am to have a pulse on everything that happens with my name on it. So it's gonna be a firm that's based on a growing client relationship, an opportunity to provide value now and potentially in the future. Some lawyers that do what I do, they see this as a rotating wheel, a spinning door of people that come in and out that they can monetize and move on from. I don't approach my client base that way. I've never approached my client base that way. I see, I obviously, we are still attorney-client relationship, but I see my greatest strength is being there, hopefully for a very long time, to be able to continue to offer good service to people and be a resource for people, even if I'm able to get a result that then takes the main reason why I'm there off the table. I'm still going to be a resource for people, and I don't think that everybody really does that. And the other thing is that I'm me. I'm my own personality. Every lawyer is a human being that has their own personality. And I know that you probably get this a lot in real estate as a broker. You could be as skilled as you want to be, and if your client doesn't like you or your vibe or the way that you explain things or your ability to offer comfort when something goes south or encouragement, right? It can very quickly deteriorate, even if you are the most skilled person on the block. And I know I'm very skilled, but I know that I have a very unique personality that I think certain people, not everyone, but certain people are going to be attracted to. And I think that that is something that I know that I'm going to be true to, that will allow hopefully people to identify with what I offer and who I'm looking to represent, and to come to me.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, I definitely see the passion. I can't imagine only a small fraction. I imagine every employer would want to hire you, an employee. You appeal to everyone, in my opinion. You just have that universal, just good energy, good vibes. Ever since I've known you, you always just you just Mr. Positive, so to speak. But about your business, you're not fluff, and I think that's why I like you, man. And
I appreciate that, Angelo.
that's why I had you on today. I wanted to hear from you, and thank you, Dan, for coming on and sharing your thoughts about employment law. And congratulations on Kovel Law opening up. It is going to be huge. I know it, and you got my support, brother. And come back, man. We got to talk more. We have to talk more about more employment. We got to dig into the roots of what's going on. There's a lot of problems going on. There's a lot of employees and employers with issues. So I'd love to have you back so we can talk a little further in more detail.
It'd be my pleasure. Of course, I look forward to it. It's an honor to get to have a few minutes to talk to you too. So thank you for your time and for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Dan. And we'll catch up after this. We'll talk. All right. Have a good one.
You too.